Williamson is 10 times the world champion. Bax and Stupilis, they've done it again. Unbelievable. Marvin van Lukenen certainly deserves the red plate. And what an incredible sport this is. Fast, high and spectacular. Unbelievable.
There's the green flag and the 15-second board has gone up. The riders raring to go. The crowd anticipating and waiting for the gates to drop. We'll soon get the 5-second board and everybody, 30 teams, will be launching themselves towards the tight right-hander. We'll have to see how this race plays out. Everybody putting their way towards the front of the machine to get the best drive possible, and the gates go down. Etienne Bax off the left-hand side, looks like he's got good drive, but on the inside is Stuart Brown and Josh Chamberlain. They have put themselves up the inside, and they've got the whole shot. Marvin van Lukenen and Ben van den Bogart up there into second place. The French pairing down there in third as well. Jake Brown and Joe Millard from their right-hand start position, not quite making the most of it at the moment. They're in fourth place. But at the moment, it's a brilliant start from Stuart Brown and Josh Chamberlain. They are well ahead at the moment. It looks like we've got a problem for Arnie Deakins and Robbie Bax. Arnie had his hand up as he comes around the left-hander. They pulled off.
Looks as though the cutout came out. There is a cutout, a deadman's lanyard if you like. As soon as that is broken or taken away, the engine automatically stops.
So an unfortunate end already for the race for Arnie Deakins and Robbie Bax. If they can get that going again, they'll definitely have the red mist in front of their goggles. But at the moment, it's Marvin van Lukenen and Ben van den Bogart still fending off the number 20 machine of Bastien Thomas. As he's there in third place, it's a good start for the number 20 pairing there. They're fending off Jake Brown and Joe Millard, who of course qualified second overall. Just behind them is number 14, that is Gert van Verven, and his new teammate, of course, the Finnish Larry Kunas.
Kompolati's then just in behind Bax. Zeno, of course, coming off a good result last weekend in France. This weekend arrived. Unfortunately, has a hairline fracture to his left tibia and also full of flu. So yesterday wasn't so good, but today he's feeling a lot better. And last couple of races to go as the leaders go away to the far end of the circuit.
I mean, we said, look at the dust just coming off the tabletop there. This track was watered fairly heavily, I'd say. A lot of riders didn't even go out in warm-up. One of the notable ones was Kern Hermans and Nicolas Mousset. They came to the pits and didn't go out. They weren't happy with the track conditions. Especially this part around here is lots of moisture in the mud as they come over the ski jump for the first time of Askien. So there you see the advantage is just under a second between Brown and van Lukenen. Le Breton and Thomas as well, they're in third. Brown and Millard still in fourth place, fending off Gert van Verven and Larry Kunas. World champions Etienne Bax and Casper Suplis rounding out the top six. That's a good start for Dan Foden and Paul Horton as well. They've put their number 100 machine up into the top 10. There's Etienne Bax and Casper Suplis all over the rear wheel of Gert van Verven as they head over towards the far side of the circuit. They've got the inside line. They're going to try and make a move up the inside of Gert van Verven, and they make it stick. So Etienne Bax and Casper Suplis, they've got to get the drive coming down the hill into the left-hander. They've got the inside line again, and it looks as though that's a done deal. So Etienne Bax promotes himself ahead of Gert van Verven and Larry Kunas.
Of course, Gert van Verven is riding the TM machine, 4-stroke. One of the only TMs in the race. Came up against the ZM30, and there is Deakins then. Problems.
No,
looks as though a steering damper has gone also, by the looks of it. Just watch the screen here. Yeah, the steering damper is broke.
And of course, with the amount of stress that goes through these machines, the steering damper is a vital part of the machine. It does falter quite commonly, I'd say.
It's a piece of equipment that happens to stick out quite a bit on the machine from the handlebars, and once that goes, there is no way you can ride one of these machines at speed at all. It will just rip the bars out of your hand.
Of course, it's not just the machines that go through a lot of stress as well, as you were saying earlier. The flu, and you've got to be 100% fit to race one of these machines, and as soon as you're not at peak physical and mental fitness, it's a whole other ball game. Then you've got to find the determination and the grit to race one of these machines at this level as well.
Yeah, these boys are ultimate athletes. In fact, I would say they are top athletes, the fittest in the world.
The gap at the front has opened up ever so slightly between Brown and Van Luken. A previous time round, it was less than a second. It's now 1.3 seconds as Etienne Bax is all over the rear wheel of Jake Brown as they head into turn 2. They can see race leader Stuart Brown and Josh Cambridge is going through. Marvin Van Luken and Ben van den Bogart in second place. That's Le Breton going through in third place as well, but Etienne Bax is all over the rear wheel of Jake Brown. Maybe he will try and make a move like he did on Gert van Verven, who you see there in the same place. It looked as though he had more speed and was stronger in that particular part of the circuit.
But this track is, or has in the past, favoured the left-hand chairs, as we saw yesterday. So, as we watch Zino Compilati, the Italian, with Bastien Chopin, and Bax is then through on Millard and Brown. So Bax now then after the next spot. Let's hope Jake can tag on the back of Bax's shirt tails and follow him through, because the leaders are away.
Now, we heard yesterday Etienne Bax say that despite he is confirmed as the 2019 world champion, he's putting out all the stops. He will try and go and take the win. And that is quite evident, as you can see. He's not taking it easy at all. He is pushing 100%, I can assure you.
And it all depends how long Bastien Thomas with Rudolf Lapetan in the chair. First time together this weekend. Rudolf normally drives with Ouvray, the Frenchman, who is not here this weekend.
So the front two are well in front at the moment, but then we've got Le Breton, Bax, Brown, as quick as you can say it, as they come over that big tabletop jump and into the final part of the circuit. We've got this tight right-hander over the jump, and Le Breton, sure, he looks so strong to try and make a move back at the inside of Bax, but there wasn't enough room this time around.
Yeah, Bax just sized him up into that turn.
10 seconds is the gap between Stuart Brown and Etienne Bax. So he'll be looking to try and pull the pin. Now, with 23 minutes left, he'll only have to go about half a second or so quicker per lap. But of course, you have to be consistent in your lap times as well.
And of course, later on, where this track is fairly narrow and fairly difficult to pass, of course, we will come into back markets. They could play a vital part. They have done here in the past, but we will now have to wait and see.
Especially with the final part of the circuit, it's all close and you kind of trip over yourself. So when you put a slower rider in the mix as well, you've got another rider to encounter and avoid, so to speak. Jake Brown's trying to get the drive at the inside of Le Breton as they make their way back down the hill. Gert van Verven and Larry Kunas looks as though they've been ever so slightly dropped at the front of this field. There is Kurt Varrick and Loris Dieders. They're right behind Zino Compilati and Bastien Chopin as well. So battles wherever you look, all over the circuit. Dan Foden and Paul Horton. And of course, we mentioned earlier that Dan Foden has changed from the right-hand sidecar to the left, and that will favour Paul Horton as well. Kern Hermans and Nicolas Mousset, they are quite a way down from what we're used to seeing. Coming into this round, they were third in the championship, and of course, that is not a done deal. Stuart Brown and Arnie Deakins and Robbie Bax, they are in fourth in the championship, but as we see earlier, their steering damper seems to have broken. And they won't be any trouble to the number 2 pairing just coming over the top there, as you see.
But also don't forget those that didn't, who weren't with us yesterday. Nico Mousset picked up an injury on his ankle, on his right ankle, and it's very swollen, very sore. So with yesterday's efforts and today, how much he can sustain. He is very strong mentally in the head.
I did see Kern walking around the paddock yesterday, and I asked him how Nicholas was doing, and he said he's struggling. Yeah. And especially with the amount of physical strain that the passengers have to go through, you can just see them coming through there, Kern Hermans and Nicolas Mousset. You, as I say, have to be at peak physical condition when something especially as important as the ankle or foot area is injured. It makes it 10 times as hard.
And also it's his lead foot, being a right-hand chair. His right foot is his lead foot, as you see there, into the D, as they come up behind Jan Kops and the young Lars de Laat. As this little freight train then comes towards us with Dan Foden Santemans, Veldman, Kops goes through then, and there is Hermans.
You just see the amount of speed that Hermans was carrying as they head into the quick right-hander. They've used the berm to try and go around the outside of the number 98 machine, and they have enough speed to make their way all the way around the outside, using the berm to their advantage, and they've managed to promote themselves up another place yet again.
So, of course, with Arne Deerkins well down, this will be an effort that can just score points.
Also notice across the line in 16th place was Marco Heinzer and Rudi Betschar. And of course, they were running strong in their qualifying race, but due to an electrical fault, as mentioned earlier, they had to start from the second row as they came through from last chance. And they're having a good ride to put themselves up into 16th as they come across the line. But at the moment, it is still Stuart Brown and Josh Chamberlain at the front of the race, ahead of Marvin van Luken and Ben van den Bogart. Compilati is coming under a lot of pressure from Kurt Varrick and Loris Dieders as they head over towards the fast part of the circuit. So we've got a right-hander before the run-up to the big tabletop jump. So Compilati still fending off the number 7 pairing of Varrick and Dieders. Into the final part of the circuit we go. There's the Italian and Frenchman. Varrick is going to try and go to the inside. Oh, he made that wrong. Oh. There's Loris Dieders. He's not happy with that.
Loris is not happy with that.
So, yeah, especially in this sport as well, the driver and the passenger, despite being, of course, two separate entities, you have to think as one. And, yeah, as you can see from the body language of Loris, he was not happy with the move that Kurt was trying to make up the inside of Compilati.
It was a brave move. Just unfortunately didn't quite come off. As we go back then to the Macclesfield lad, Stuart Brown, 15 times British champion, with Josh Chamberlain, the tree surgeon. Behind them is Marvin van Luken and Ben van den Bogart.
I tell you, it doesn't look as though that Marvin and Ben are making up as much ground as what they would like. Of course, we see Stuart Brown yesterday. He got the advantage after 1 or 2 laps, and he went from there. He managed to pull away a second or lap or so. So Marvin van Luken are doing well just to struggle onto the back of Stuart Brown and Josh Chamberlain. However, they've not quite got the pace to close the gap as they wish to do.
The speeds are very high here, and of course these top 10 are all around the same. There's not much difference in them, so it is very difficult to make time. The only place, or the only time that you will make time, is if somebody makes a mistake. There's Stuart's father, Norman, with the board. So, as then Marvin and Ben up onto the start straight. As Bradley said this morning, they watered this circuit fairly well to try and keep the dust down. Fortunately, it went a little the other way, but it seems to be okay at the moment.
We was in the pits when they was doing the warm-up, and the guys you see on screen there, Marvin and Ben, they came in and came to one of the stewards and said, "Did it rain last night? What happened?" There was just so much moisture and the ground was so boggy. It was completely different to what they would have had their machines set up for yesterday, especially.
That's right. Yeah, for sure.
They'll have to take that into account and try and adapt their riding style, their lines, just to find where the grip is and more speed as well. But it looks as though they found a solid rhythm at the moment, just behind Stuart Brown and Josh Chamberlain. Now, of course, if this track comes back to them how it was yesterday, that will favour Stuart Brown, of course, even more. If we are to base this off of the performances yesterday, but we'll have to wait and see, as we just come up to 16 minutes left, and the 2 laps at the end as well also.
So Varrick then has got in front of the Italian-French pairing. So Zeno, past couple of Grand Prix, have had some fantastic rides. So he's struggling with a hairline fracture of the tibia on his outside foot. So you can imagine what that's like trying to ride. And also full of flu. But he's out there giving it his all.
So the gap at the front is 2.5 seconds. I'm just looking down at my notes here, and it would seem that Stuart Brown and Josh Chamberlain, their best heat finish is a 3rd. They've had 4 of those this year, so if they manage to take home this one, they'll be happy with that. And it looks as though Julian and Sam Veldmans have got a problem. They're going slowly. They're coasting around the outside.
Whether it's Sam's, I expect the pace was very high for Sam. Sam normally rides in the championship at home. And of course the pace here is very high and very different. And to ride 2 days also, for a youngster, a 16-year-old, that's a big ask.
Yeah, it's always good to just be thrown in the deep end and see if you sink or swim. And in this case, he's definitely swam. I mean, how many 16-year-olds can ride at this pace, especially with the competition you're up against, such as Etienne and Marvin and Kerner also?
And he struggled with a big blister yesterday. We managed to try and sort him out for today, but looks as though it's slightly too much for him.
So I have a feeling we'll definitely be seeing him in the future as well, in future seasons.
We will hopefully see him again soon. That's Lagermatt, Tom van der Lagermatt. So a problem with the machine.
Let's see if we can see what's going on there. See, van der Lagermatt was just pulling the clutch. I'm not quite sure if there was an issue in that area of the bike.
And that's the pairing that had the big crash this morning over the tabletop in warm-up. So 14 minutes of this race gone. As we look through the dust as Hermans goes through the shot. There is the Englishman Foden with Heinzer. Of course, went to the last chance yesterday. Had to start from the back row, working his way through.
Of course, they're both on the left-hand chairs as well, so whatever advantage that one or two have, then it will be the same for both. So you have to go off your preferred line and try and make a move, almost a block pass, I'd say.
Exactly.
As Jake Brown and Joe Millard, they're still running strong in 4th place. As they just navigate their way around the final part of the circuit. They'll go towards the right-hander as well, before the small jump, and then the run-up to the tabletop jump that the, as you say, van der Lagermatt and Van Gaal had an incident on in earlier warm-up. But it looks as though Jake Brown and Joe Millard have that all covered. Now, one thing that is interesting yesterday for the last chance, Joe Millard, the passenger you see on the screen there, he joined me for the commentary, and we were saying the foot position as you go into the D, he brings his around the sidecar as opposed to the conventional, in quotation marks, let's say, of putting your foot through. So he was telling me it is personal preference. There's no real advantage or disadvantage. It's just how you feel on the bike.
Yeah, exactly. It's, of course, the Millards from the dynasty. His father rode as a passenger with his brother, Paul. And, of course, Joe used to ride with his brother, Daniel, for a few years, doing Grand Prix, finished 10th in the world. As we look then, as Marvin and Ben come to some back markers.
There's also a next generation of Millards as well, with Kai Millard now running around the paddock. So young Kai Millard. Potentially we could see him in the future. Let's see how things go. And I was speaking to Joe as well. It will be completely different from being on the bike to standing beside the fence and watching somebody else do it, especially your son.
Yes, exactly.
So we see it many times in this sport as well. I mean, with Norman Brown, then Stuart Brown, and now Jake Brown as well, up there in 4th place.
And of course, there is another Brown coming behind that with Alfie.
Of course, yeah, the brothers, I believe, are they? Racing in the British Championship.
Yep, and Imber doing the Imber. So that will be interesting in a few years. As we go back then to Hermans and Mousset are slowly plugging away, taking some more scalps to make more points, to make himself comfortable.
Just put themselves ahead of Kalenchik and Hejal. So Hermans and Mousset now up into 9th place, ahead of the Czech pairing. Now they'll be pulling the pin and trying to make up as much ground as they can on 8th place. But the gap at the front is still hovering around that 2.5 to 3 seconds between Stuart Brown and Marvin van Lukenen. So they have pulled over a big advantage over Etienne Bax and Casper Stupelis already. They're a further 11 seconds behind the #1 pairing of the Belgian and Dutchman.
So whether Bax, Stupelis haven't quite got the setup right. Obviously, didn't get the gate that they would have liked to get up the front early. had to fight their way through, and of course by that time Stuart's had a clear track. Marvin has followed him through.
So of course, for next year as well, it's not confirmed what Bax and Stupelis are doing, but one that is confirmed is Marvin van Lukener and Ben van den Bogart. I believe they'll be going into their 3rd season of racing together for the #1 pairing. So it will be interesting to see if they can clinch back their title from last year as well. But they'll be up against Etienne Bax and Casper Stupelis, who of course will be looking to retain it as well.
The rumour is, on this Grand Prix circus, is that Etienne and Nico Mousset will get back together again. That is the rumour. Nothing has been signed, nothing has been said, but that is a possibility. So there you see the Cooch cousins, either a problem, looks as though they've either had a problem or a tumble.
They were running strongly as well. They had a good qualifying and they were in a good, strong position during this race, but as we've seen so many times before, it looks as though they've got a problem with their steering. And again, just one of the things about this sport, steering damper, I believe. So the issue that had befallen so many riders previous as well. It's also happened to Christophe and Maxime in race 1 here today.
So you see there Bax and Stupelis making their way past the German rider, Adrian Petter and Mira Zatlukal. Adrian joined me yesterday, as you saw, or joined me with the track walk. You can see the big lock up there from Etienne to try and get that to drop in.
The gap at the front is open up slightly. It went from 2.5 to now 4.6 seconds between Stuart Brown and Marvin van Lukener. Etienne Bax and Casper Stupelis dropping a bit of time as they are 17 seconds behind the leader. But still they have a healthy advantage over Jake Brown and Joe Millard. So Stuart Brown in 1st and his son Jake Brown down in 4th place as well. But Etienne Bax and Casper Stupelis, they're, as I say, looking fairly secure in their 3rd place. So despite wanting to go with the leaders, they should still be happy with 3rd place. That's some good, strong points. That will put them into race 2 as well. And they'll be looking to go out on a high.
They're never happy unless they're winning. It's like most of these riders.
It's a typical racer.
It's a typical racer, as you know yourself. It's a typical racer.
Etienne just coming up on a slow rider. They put their hand up quite rightly as they make their way around the outside. So I didn't quite see who that was.
Normac. And as you can see there, the blue groove, whether you joined us yesterday, we talked about this blue groove that is starting to come, where these machines are so powerful.
Now with the blue groove, does that affect the characteristics of the bike and the power delivery as well? Like how will it change during the course of the race?
With the Zabels, they just tend to just sit there and spin. It's very difficult to get them to drive forward, whereas the 4-strokes, they will just literally chug through it like a tractor. So the Zabels will possibly have a disadvantage. But again, we talked about earlier, people have changed tyres because they were expecting this blue groove to come. So you want to get a tyre that will work towards the end of the race, so that you can keep your position, if you like. The last thing you need is the same as we see in MotoGP, with guys with tyres going off, and that's the last thing you need here.
And to try and control the tyre wear as well throughout the race, I guess. So
yeah, you can't do it so much like the MotoGP boys do, but you have to try and conserve what you have.
Yes.
And again, it's all down to preparation and before you start.
Okay, so one pairing that have got their preparation down to a T is the guys you see on screen there, Stuart Brown and Josh Chamberlain, just making their way around the outside. Look as though it's at Harok, the Czech pairing on number 21 there. They, of course, also came through last chance. So that is the Harok pairing of Pavel and Martin. But Stuart Brown and Josh Chamberlain, they have got a healthy advantage at the front of this race, ahead of Marvin van Lukener and Ben van den Bogart. 6 minutes left and 2 laps to go now.
One of those ones that we were talking about changing tyres. Stuart was one of those. He switched from his basic Mifo across to the Michelin tyre. The Michelin tyre is flatter across the profile. Also not so many knobbles. and works better on this blue groove.
So as opposed to alternate tyres, that will give you a bigger footprint, I guess, will it?
That's right. It will give you the bigger footprint, and the more footprint you have on the across the surface will give you the drive.
Of course, so that could be the reason why he's opened the advantage over Van Lukenen, because of course with the 4-stroke paired with that sort of tyre, he can just drive so much more than what anybody else can, it would seem.
That's right. The character, of course, the characters, yeah.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, exactly. I'll put my teeth back in. The Zarbel normally will just spin. That's the design of the engines. You just open them up, they spin, and then they grip and go.
Just a typical 2-stroke where all the power is got nothing, and then all in one go.
Exactly. So we see there Arnie Deakins and Robbie Bax.
Steering damper number 2.
Coming back through. I'll try and find out what position they are in.
At the moment, they're looking fairly comfortable. It looks as though they've just got ahead of Iron Kotz and Lars de Laat. So they're making up ground, trying to, I'd say, if you're in this position where you've had to pull out and make adjustments to the bike, you'd have to kind of get yourself in the groove and prepare yourself for the next race also.
Of course, all your heart rate is, you know, if you think you've just set off the start line, your heart rate would be up around the 180, 190 beats per minute. You would be breathing heavily for the first couple of laps, and then you'll have a problem. You start to sweat when you're in the box then while they're changing things, your goggles missed up. Everything is just thrown out the window, and you have to learn to get your control back, your head back in the game.
Okay, so Arnie Deakins and Robbie Bax, it seems as though they're down in 26th place at the moment, of course, due to that broken steering damper earlier in the race.
So no points.
No, of course, no. So what would that do for the championship? I'll move to my notes. Of course, it's not over and done with for 3rd, 4th and 5th.
So that would make that quite interesting.
Now this is interesting, as you say. Arnie Deakins and Robbie Bax, 19 points behind them is Stuart Brown and Josh Chamberlain, who of course 25-point position at the moment. So that would promote themselves up into 4th in the championship.
So that is a massive, unfortunate. Of course, as we always say with this sport, motorsport, you never know what's going to happen.
It's a cliched thing to say, but it's not over till it's over.
Yeah. Yeah.
Once you see that checkered flag, nothing is safe, so to speak.
Exactly. Exactly. And as we say, 2 minutes, just over 2 minutes of this race to go. So by my reckoning, I would imagine that will be 3 laps. Including the 2 last laps. So there you see Bax, Deakins.
We see it so many times, but it just really puts into perspective how much the passenger actually works.
That's right.
Joe Millard was telling me the amount of influence he has over the machine, both in the corners and in the air, is just more than what I could ever imagine.
Yeah.
So
yeah. As you see here, Joshy has come away with his right hand. They tend to try and brake to get the back end to break away. So if you push on the mudguard with your right hand, like you see it there on screen, you can get the back end to brake, and it makes it easier then for Stuart to get the power back on and get the drive. Yeah,
for coming into this sport for the first time, the machines look really heavy and agricultural, so to speak, I'd say. But yeah, to see the passenger have as much influence as what they have, as you can see, it's yeah, incredible to see, really.
Yeah, these guys, and to ride one, hopefully we can get you, if you can come to one of the parties later on in the year. We'll find you some kit and we'll stick you out on one of these machines and you can have a taste of what it's like.
Okay, I'll have my eyes closed throughout all of it, I can assure you.
We will supply the driver with earplugs, because you will be screaming.
I'll be screaming, I'll be, yeah, very dramatic.
So then as we come down to the last few minutes of this race, through the shot, Gary Moles, Brian Anthony, and there are your leaders. The Macclesfield boy. There's Norman, gesticulating to let people know that the leaders are coming through.
He knows a thing or two about racing these machines, so Norman, been around the paddock for a lot of years.
Yeah, has been by Stuart's side for as long as I can remember. And of course, Stuart has been in this game. He is 44 years old. Yes, I did say 44. and he's been doing it for something like 25 years.
In a sport like this as well, I can imagine experience is key. It's a vital part to find where the grip is and how the track will alter during the race, and to find a setup that will incorporate, I guess, both the beginning and the end conditions.
Exactly, and he's ridden here many times. This is possibly the first time in maybe 6 or 7 years that we have had dry conditions. In previous years it's been proper wet and sloppy and horrible, and it's just not nice. But you have to be able to ride all conditions, all types of terrains in this sport.
It's the same for everyone. If it's raining for you, it's of course raining for everybody else. So
exactly.
All down to experience and setup, and knowing whereabouts the time can be made up, of course.
Yep.
And at the moment, it looks as though Stuart Brown and Josh Chamberlain have the best advantage at the moment, as they're about 6 seconds ahead of Marvin van Lukener and Ben van den Bogart. Kurt Hermans and Nicolas Mousset have put themselves up into 6th place. Now, I don't think we've got enough time for them to put themselves inside the top 5, but that'll be a strong finish, especially after their not-so-good start. They've overtaken Gert van Verven and Larry Cunas. Compilati and Chopin in 8th place as well, the Italian and Frenchman.
And that's a good position for Heinz and Betchart, 2nd row.
Especially after the last chance as well. He has a 25th choice, which is not ideal to say the least. So, as you say, inside the top 10 is a very respectable finish for Marco and Rudy.
So Stuart then just coming into some back markers. Through the shot goes George Kinge, Lewis Gray. I've had a fantastic year this year. Unfortunately, they've picked up a couple of injuries. So Stuart then, 2 laps to go.
Van Lukener and Van den Bogart still 5.5 seconds behind. So at the moment, it looks as though Brown and Chamberlain all but have this in the bag at the moment, barring a mechanical failure. But we have seen it so many times. I won't try to curse it for them, because this, of course, will be their first ever heat victory, or first this year, I mean. So they'll be very happy with that. They've come from 4 third-place heat finishes throughout the year. So to put themselves on top of the podium for this one, especially as dominantly as they have.
Yeah, they've been absolutely superb. And we saw it yesterday in the qualification races. They got out the gate. They stayed out of trouble. The machinery stayed together.
They almost make it look easy with how they're just picking off riders one after one. So, yeah, it just goes to show the experience is key in this sport as well.
Yeah, it's Stuart's first race victory this year. They have been on the podium a couple of times, I think, this year. Rolkenberg, I think, was 1 in Switzerland. So then, the last lap and a half for the Macclesfield Flyer, with Josh Chamberlain, the guy from Wokingham, the tree surgeon and the carpenter.
He'll be liking this location with the amount of trees that we've got just to the left-hand side there. He's got enough time in hand to almost have a look at them.
And you see there, Marvin has come up against these back markers. There's 3 or 4 left chairs in that group as well, so that will hold him up a little bit more.
Especially this sector of the circuit, it's very difficult to get it right by yourself, especially with 4 other people in the mix. It will be very difficult for them to make it pass cleanly.
So now then, Stuart, last 2 minutes of this race, the penultimate race of the 2019 season.
So 1.6 kilometres left to go for the British pairing, as you say, from Macclesfield. Just coming over the 6 jumps there, the rollers. And of course, they're a vital part of the circuit as well, because if you mess up the first one, that's it. You've messed up about 3 seconds, and then you've lost a lot of time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we looked at them in the track walk. They are reasonably easy, but anything can happen. You've only got to miss a gear or just slightly get something wrong. So there they are.
He'll be smiling in his helmet. Both Stuart Brown and Josh Chamberlain will be, as they know that this will be their best chance, of course, 5.5 seconds in front of the outgoing world champions from last year. They'll be very happy with this performance as well as the finish. It will give them a confidence boost as well into the next round. Now, this year they haven't taken a heat first victory, so they'll be looking to get the better of everyone there. Etienne Bax and Casper Stupelis just coming through as well. It looks as though they're closing the gap on Marvin van Lukener and Ben van den Bogart. They've got half a lap to try and make a move and make up as much time as possible. But Stuart Brown and Josh Chamberlain, they have almost 6 seconds in hand over the #1 pairing. They make their way round the final right-hander. Oh, we've got an issue here. We've got yellow flags being waved. I can't see a number on there.
No.
Don't know if you know who that was. There's Arnie Deakins just coming through and Robbie Bax. Stuart Brown and Josh Chamberlain, they have 3 corners left. Of course, going slowly there as well.
It looks as though it's a left chair as well, but I'll try and find out who that was. Well, in fact, there's
Paul Horton or Dan Foden.
Paul Horton or Dan Foden, so possibly one of those.
This will be all about Stuart Brown and Josh Chamberlain, though, as they power their way over the ski jump to take their first ever, or this year at least, victory. You can see how happy and how much it means to them as they congratulate each other on their performance. So they will be happy with the 25 points. Marvin van Lukener and Ben van den Bogart come home in 2nd place. In the end, it was 8.3 seconds, the advantage for Stuart Brown and Josh Chamberlain. Etienne Bax and Casper Stupelis, despite their best efforts, they still finish in 3rd place. So they might not be 100% happy with that. However, it's still some good points there. I believe 20 points for them to take into the next race.
Yeah, that's Dan Foden there. That's Cops and Lars de Laat. Can't quite see who that is, still on the floor. Can't quite see who that was on the floor. Let's hope they are okay.
So Stuart Brown and Josh Chamberlain, the race winners, and it sounds as though we've got Stuart Brown down there in the pits as well. Let's see what he thought of that race.
Stuart, congratulations. First race victory this season. You must be feeling wonderful. Did you expect coming into the final round that you will be dominating the weekend like this?
No, not at all. Every week we just go again with open mind. The same with the next race. If we get a good start, we're in with a chance. And obviously the speed is there, but it's hard to pass, you know, and also pass the back markers. So things, it's a little bit lucky, but yeah, it went good then.
Well, congratulations and good luck in the next race.
So Stuart Brown is very happy with that one. He will try and take his confidence into the next race and do a repeat performance. There's a very dominant display as well. We've just seen some pictures on screen here of how he went from the whole shot and to dominate the race for the half an hour and 2 laps as well.
And that's difficult. That is very difficult to try and keep your concentration with your heart rate is going, you know, higher and higher. We go down back with Yeva, and I believe she has Etienne Bax.
Etienne, 3rd place in the first race. Was it tough to follow Stuart and Marvin, and are you satisfied with the result?
Yeah, of course we want to win here, but it's tough here. It's quite tough here, and I think we had a good race. We had a good feeling on the bike. Okay, we had 4th, 5th place with the start, and at the end we came very close to Verluchenen. So yeah, it was a good race. We know that Brown is fast here all weekend, so yeah, he's a deserved winner. And yeah, it's too bad that it was not a couple laps more, because I had a feeling that we could overtake Verluchenen. But it is what it is, and hopefully we can make a nice 2nd moto.
Well, good luck.
Williamson is 10 times the world champion. Bax and Stupelis, they've done it again. Unbelievable. Marvin van Lukener certainly deserves the red plate. And what an incredible sport this is. Fast, high and spectacular. Unbelievable.